Josh Heston,
Lisa Martin.
Lisa Martin. No, we're in Carthage.
Carthage, Missouri, at the old Opera House.
Yeah, and it's cold.
It's very cold. We tend to do these things on cold days, Josh.
We do. It's we planned it.
Yeah.
We planned it.
We'll go with that.
It's cold and snowy. One of the most historic structures downtown.
It really is. Actually, it's the first brick building built on the square after the Civil War when everything was burnt.
Right, and lots of just layers of history.
It really is. There were buildings here during the Civil War that were destroyed in the Battle of Carthage. The square was burned later, and then this was rebuilt in 1878. And even while it was being built, the construction workers complained about hearing phantom cannon fire in the basement, reported in the newspapers.
And so this is something that we've talked a lot about again, layers of echoes, and then what seems to also be layers of sentient hauntings as well.
Yes, and both types of activity happen here. You get a lot of residual sounds of someone falling down the back stairs, footsteps, cannon fire, gunfire, screams in the opera house. That phantom music is heard sometimes. And then there are times that you get things that interact.
Yeah, and so of course with the theater itself, there's always that sense of sort of transient magic.
Yes.
With the theater. The theater was up front, and then later the portion that we're standing in, quote unquote, the back, was an addition.
It was built on by the Turner family in the early 1900s and turned into a furniture and wagon factory.
And there's so again, one of the things, and this is more of this isn't a haunting thing, but that I find really interesting. People often don't think about it, but the second or third floors of this era buildings were oftentimes heavily utilized.
Yes. As well as the basement. Actually, Nell's Mortuary started in the basement of this building. Then they moved to a second building just off the square, and they're still in business in a third location.
Wow. And one of the things that we've seen over and over now, a lot of people associate hauntings with cemeteries. Sometimes that's a bit hit or miss.
Yeah.
But funeral homes, mortuaries, on the other hand, pretty consistent.
Yes, and there definitely is activity in the basement in that area, as well as their second location. It's known to be haunted, particularly by horses from the horse-drawn hearses.
Wow. And it brings up the question: Is it a horse ghost? Is it an echo from the past? We don't know.
We don't know. My guess is it's an echo, but.
I would lean toward that as well.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of a horse ghost.
Me too.
I really do. Now there's the responses that people, and including yourself, have experienced here, and others have really ranged from very light, sometimes a little mischievous, to some of the reports being actually quite dark.
Yes, everything from a small boy that likes to play, who says his name is Billy, and he likes to play marbles, and you also hear the phantom sounds of an old pop gun when he's around. People have seen patrons of the Opera House, we assume, in elegant Victorian attire. There also was a murder in the building in 1899.
Okay.
The proprietor at that time had a hardware store downstairs and found out that his best friend was having an affair with his wife.
Ouch.
And invited him to breakfast on the square, and they walked back over here, and he shot him dead.
As one does.
As one does. And became quite a sordid event, as he was not convicted of murder. They think that everyone felt sorry for him, the state he was in. But the problem was he had found out the day before and waited to the next day to shoot him. But
certainly not enough time to think about that.
No.
No, not overnight.
And the widow sued him for loss of support of her husband for she and her children, and won a very sizable award, which led to him basically losing everything and selling the property.
Wow. So of course, there's been a lot of property owners
Yeah.
Of this location over the years. A number of changes have happened, but it's still a really substantial building.
It really is, and there's a lot of original architectural features. It's just beautiful.
It really, really is. It makes me think of all the plays, all the theatrical presentations that would have gone on here, and just the history of the Ozarks that is really embedded within the floors and the walls.
Exactly, and perhaps you could say the creepiest or the saddest story is probably of the little girl that's on the square that she's seen in several buildings, including the old high school, which is a couple blocks away, and she's present in this building. And for a long time, the thought was she must have wandered into the tunnels under the square and gotten lost and expired. But we actually found a newspaper clipping from the construction of this building that while they had dug the pit for the basement, but they hadn't pumped the water out yet, and there was a carriage accident, and a woman and her young daughter were thrown into the pit and never recovered. And she has been seen here, heard here. I've heard her, other people have. She's been caught on video in other locations. I've seen it. It's pretty creepy.
Yeah, and that her movement, essentially, or phantom movement, seems to be associated with water.
Yes, and through the tunnels. Yeah.
And that's...
Every place that she's seen has a connection to the underground tunnels.
And of course, that's history beneath our feet.
Yes.
It's history that we don't see.
Yeah.
When you drive through Carthage, you have no idea that this interlocking network is underneath us, and that network is largely natural.
Here it is. It's largely natural. There's actually a natural lake just off the square too.
That's good to know.
Underground.
Very good to know. Oh, so of course it's always an honor to be here in the Opera House, and exciting to be in Carthage. I think there are so many small American towns, not just in the Ozarks, but just small American towns that have all of this rich history. But if you grew up here, you might not even know it.
That happens a lot. We get that a lot with people saying, "I didn't know that ever happened," But find out your history. It's more interesting than you think.
Absolutely.